for Grandma's story time? I am, and I've got my story bag here. It's my bag with purple circles and golden elephants and blue circles and golden elephants and red circles. And you know, don't you? It's my bag with Peter. Are you coming out, Peter? You're happy to be back? Oh, you like this storybook. Yes, you do. You're very happy that they're home. Yes. It would have been nice to help Winks, wouldn't it? And to get all the toys back. You don't know who the special visitor is? I don't either. Who do you think the special visitor will be? I was thinking about it. I thought maybe it's a mouse. A little mouse that could creep in. You don't think it's a mouse? Oh, he wants to read the book and find out. Who do you think Chinky's very special visitor would be? We're reading Enid Blyton, The Wishing Chair again. What chapter are we up to, Chinky? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We're up to chapter 14. Say bye-bye, Peter. He's going in the bag. Put on your glasses, Grandma, if you want to read the book. And let's begin. We're up to chapter 14. It's called Mr. Blackie's Strange Army. Who's Mr. Blackie? We certainly need to find out. Chinky saw the children peeping in. He got up from the sofa and called them.
Hello, I'm so glad you've come. Come on in. I've got an old friend here and I want you to meet him.
The old friend stood up. And what do you think he was? He was a tall gollywog, so old that his black hair had turned grey. He was not as tall as they were, but he was a bit taller than Chinky.
This is Mr. Blackie, the ruler of Gollywog Village,
said Chinky. The gollywog bowed politely and shook hands. Everyone sat down, the children and Chinky on the sofa and the gollywog in the wishing chair.
I hope you don't mind me sitting in your wishing chair,
he said politely to the children.
But it really is such a treat and a privilege. I've never seen one before.
Not at all. We're very pleased, said Peter. I only wish it would grow its wings. Then it could take you for a short ride. It feels funny at first, but it's lovely when you get used to it.
I've been telling Mr. Blackie about your toys that Mr. Grimm has got and won't give you back,
said Chinky.
I think Mr. Grimm should be forced to give them up to you,
said Mr. Blackie earnestly.
I propose that I raise a little army from Toyland and march on the school.
Peter and Molly gazed at him in wonder and astonishment. It all sounded like a dream to them, but a very exciting and interesting dream. An army from Toyland? Goodness gracious, who ever heard of such a thing?
Mr. Blackie has very great influence in Toyland,
explained Chinky.
As I told you, He is the head of Gollywog village and very much respected and admired. In fact, he has now ruled it for over 100 years.
Are you really 100 years old? Asked Molly, amazed.
153 to be exact.
Said Mr. Blackie with a polite little bow.
I became the head once I was 54.
Is it difficult to be the head of Gollywog village? Asked Peter.
Well, no, not really. As long as you're very firm with those young gollywogs.
Said Mr. Blackie.
They are rather wild, you know. Now, what I suggest is this. I will send to the wooden soldiers, the clockwork animals, and the sailor dolls. And also my gollywogs, of course, and tell them to meet me at a certain place. They will make a very fine army.
And you'll march on the school?
Said Chinky.
And when you have defeated Mr. Grimm, you will rescue Rosebud, the doll, and the other toys.
Exactly,
said Mr. Blackie. Can we come too? Said Peter, excited. I'd simply love to see all this. If only the wishing chair would grow its wings when your army is on the march. We could hover over the battle and watch, said Molly. But it never grows its wings exactly when we want it to.
I'll send you word when we mean to march,
said the gollywog.
It will probably be tomorrow evening. Well, I must go now. Thank you for your pleasant evening, Chinky.
He shook hands with all three of them and went out the door.
Isn't he nice?
Said Chinky.
He's a very old friend of my great-aunt Quickfingers, you know. And I've often met him at her house. I thought I'd tell him about Rosebud and the other toys and how Mr. Grimm wouldn't give them back. I guessed he would help.
The playroom clock struck 10. We must get back, said Molly with a sigh. We only meant to come for half an hour. It's been lovely, Chinky. I do think we're lucky having you for a friend and meeting all your friends and having such an interesting time. They went back to bed, hoping that the wishing chair would grow its wings again the next night if the gollywog gathered his curious little army. They couldn't go down to the playroom till after tea because Mother took them to see their granny. They raced down as soon as they could, very excited to see Chinky.
I'm so glad you've come. The wishing chair has grown its little buds already. They'll sprout properly in a minute, and the gollywog has sent to say his army is on the march.
Oh, what a bit of luck! Cried the children, and they ran to the chair. Just as they got to it, the knob-like buds on its legs burst open and outspread lovely green and yellow wings. They began to flap at once and made quite a wind. Come on, said Peter, sitting in the chair. Let's go. And Chinky, don't forget we need to take Winks away from that horrid school if we can. He can live with you here in the playroom if he hasn't got a home to go to. Molly got in and Chinky sat on the back of the chair, and out of the door they flew at top speed. The wishing chair was told to go to Mr. Grimm's.
But don't go down into the grounds,
commanded Chinky.
Just hover somewhere so that we can see what's going on and can dart down if we need to.
It wasn't really very long before the chair was hovering over the front gate of Mr. Grimm's school. Not far off were all the brownies, marching up and down in their big schoolyard, doing their drill with Mr. Grimm. Then the marching brownies suddenly caught sight of the wishing chair hovering in the air, and they set up a great shout.
Look, they're coming! Hooray for Chinky and Molly and Peter!
Mr. Grimm stared up too. He looked really furious, and to the children's dismay, he bent down and picked up a large stone. It came whizzing through the air at them, but the wishing chair did a little leap to one side, and the stone passed harmlessly by. Then Chinky gave the others a nudge.
Here comes the army. Do look.
The children looked, and dear me, up the lane marched the strangest little army the children had ever imagined. First came the grey-haired old gollywog, swinging a little sword. Then came a row of wooden soldiers beating their drums. Then another row blowing trumpets. After them came a whole collection of clockwork animals.
There's a jumping kangaroo.
Cried Chinky in glee.
And a dancing bear.
And a running dog. And a walking elephant, said Molly in delight. And look, a pig that turns head over heels. And a duck that waddles, shouted Peter, almost falling out of the chair in excitement. And behind them are all the sailor dolls. Don't they look smart? The strange army came to the gate. The clockwork kangaroo jumped right over to the other side. He undid the gate and he opened it for the army to walk through. The brownies saw the toys before Mr. Grimm did and shouted in joy. They ran to meet them.
Who are you? Where have you come from?
They called.
Can we play with you? We never have any toys here.
We've come for Mr. Grimm. We don't like Mr. Grimm. We've come to capture him. We've come for Mr. Grimm,
chanted all the toys. Mr. Grimm stared at them as if he couldn't believe his eyes.
After him,
shouted the gollywog, and after him they went. He turned to run, but the jumping kangaroo got between his legs and tripped him up. And there he was, bumping his nose on the ground, yelling for mercy. The toys all swarmed over him in delight.
Don't pull my hair, don't cut off my beautiful beard,
begged Mr. Grimm. The gollywog seemed just about to saw the long beard off with his sword. The children and Chinky saw it all from their seat up in the wishing chair and were just as excited as the toys and the brownies.
I'll leave your beard on one condition,
said the gollywog solemnly.
Go and get the toys you have imprisoned here and bring them out to us.
Mr. Grimm got up, looking very frightened, and went indoors. He came out with all the toys. Molly gave a scream of delight when she saw Rosebud. He's even got the teapot that grew its wings too, said Peter, pleased. The chair flew down to Mr. Grimm, and the children took all their toys from him. Molly cuddled Rosebud happily. Thank you, she said to the grey-haired gollywog. You and your army have done very, very well. Do please bring any of them to visit us whenever you can. The brownies crowded around the chair.
Take us back with you. Take us back.
We have only room for one of you, and that is Winks, said Peter firmly. Come on, Winks. Up got Winks, grinning all over his little brownie face. The wishing chair rose up into the air. Goodbye, shouted Chinky and the others.
Let us know if Mr. Grimm behaves too badly to you, and we'll send the army once again. Goodbye.
Off they went, with all the toys and brownies waving madly. Mr. Grimm didn't wave. He looked very down in the mouth indeed. But nobody was sorry for him, not even Molly. And of course, that's the end of the chapter. That was such a lovely way to finish the chapter, wasn't it? Fancy all the toys, all marching on Mr. Grimm. And the kangaroo jumped over the gate and unlocked it and let them in. And Mr. Grimm's long beard, he didn't want the gollywog, Mr. Gollywog, to cut it off, so he went and got all the toys. So they didn't need a key. Mr. Grimm used his key to unlock. That is a good end. But they still haven't been to the land of goodness knows where. I wonder if they'll ever go there. Come back tomorrow and we'll have our next chapter. Bye-bye.